Hello friends and welcome to my channel. I am Cher. First things first, sorry about this crazy blue eyeshadow that's going on. I know that's the elephant in the room. I just finished a crazy fun makeup look for a collab. I do a lot of fun, all different color looks. It is kind of appropriate for today's topic though. We're going to be discussing that more. April is Autism Awareness Month. I had really wanted to do this video last year at this time and just time got away from me. And I've already missed April 2nd, which is actual World Autism Day. But for the month of the month of April, I know that Autism Speaks is probably going to be a topic that's discussed a lot. But first of all, if you are new here, I'm Cher, and I typically blog a lot of beauty here on this channel. Now, I actually started blogging parenting disabilities though. I was in that niche at first when I first got into blogging and being an influencer. I recently discussed though that I no longer blog parenting disability topics, and I actually have a video on this. I'm going to link it for you, I think here, just explaining my decision not to do a lot of blogging on parenting disabilities anymore. But I do actually have a website still with a lot of good information, lots of blog articles, articles where I've been published, a few YouTube videos as well. So I will leave you that link where you can find that website. And I am an expert on those is because I am a mom of a child with autism, also a child with type 1 diabetes, a host of other diagnoses as well. So anyway, today's topic though, I'm kind of making an exception. Okay, so what is Autism Speaks? Autism Speaks is an organization who they're probably the most well-known organization for autism. They do a lot of research. They do, awareness campaigns. So Light It Up Blue is their big campaign. And so if you have stumbled on the internet and Googled autism, you have probably stumbled mostly on the information that comes from the Autism Speaks Light It Up Blue campaign, getting all of the awareness and information out there. So April 2nd is a Light It Up Blue Day, World Autism Day, and so they've kind of been the ones behind this day in really creating all that awareness. Thus the blue eyeshadow. Although I didn't do this for autism, I did this for another makeup collab, but I thought, you know what, keeping it on because we're talking all about Light It Up Blue and Autism Speaks, so it's perfect and appropriate, kind of. We'll see. We'll talk about that in a minute. So anyway, that's a little bit about who they are. Let's get into now, why are they controversial? So let's get into the heart of some of the arguments against Autism Speaks. Now, you kind of have almost like a split in the autism community. On one side, you have a lot of the people who tend to be the ones who are autistic themselves, people with autism who, and even that's a controversy right there on how we label. Do we say person with autism or do we say autistic? Some people don't even like being called autistic because, they feel like I am not my diagnosis. I don't want to be labeled as autistic. And it's more like I'm a person that's living with autism. So that's one little controversy right there too, is like, how do we approach it? What do we say? Just my interpretation and what I have seen being in the autism community is you do tend to have it more from the people with autism are the ones who speak out against Autism Speaks more, as opposed to the parents, the caregivers. So that's kind of a little bit of the general split that I have personally seen and get the impression of. Now, there are some exceptions. I mean, not everybody on each camp is that way. So, I'm coming at it from a parent of autism, not someone with autism myself. Okay, so the folks who don't care for Autism Speaks, there's a few reasons why. The first one that I have heard, the first argument that a lot of them have made is that Autism Speaks is more out for a cure of autism as opposed to teaching society how to embrace, neurodiverse, basically the differences in how our brains work. So basically, the argument is they're born that way. They can't help it. their brain works differently and that we should be celebrating that neurodiversity as opposed to trying to fix it, if that makes sense. There's also a controversy of the symbol as well. So for a long time, the symbol of autism has been the puzzle piece. Now, I will go ahead and tell you, I have a puzzle piece tattoo on my ankle for my son. As opposed to what is now being kind of advocated and more of the thing to push now is the infinity symbol that's more rainbow. And this is basically representing all the colors of the rainbow, neurodiversity. So it's basically trying to push for diversity and celebrating that and like recognizing it and saying that's okay, you know, be who you are kind of thing. So I think that's one of the big arguments is that Autism Speaks is not usually always out there advocating from the point of, oh, people with autism have wonderful gifts. They have so many things to celebrate. They have so many strengths. Let's celebrate who they are and the way that they think and that kind of thing. Instead of presenting it that way, they do a lot of presenting probably more to parents of like, you know, here's some nutritional ideas, you know, like gluten-free, casein-free diet can help, you know, fix things in the brain, or certain supplements might help. They really are big on studying kind of biomedical therapy, basically looking into your diet, looking into like supplements and vitamins that help, herbs, oxygen therapy, like, you know, a lot of the more like things that you can do physically to help change the chemicals in the brain, basically. So they do a lot of research on that. They've also, in the past, you know, presented the different types of behavior therapies that you can do as a parent to help your child to function in society. And one of the main therapies out there that's always been kind of the standard accepted blueprint for autism is what's called ABA therapy, applied behavior analysis, I believe is what it stands for. So if you're not familiar with it and you're like, what is it? I don't want to try to like generalize it too much. There's a lot to it. However, the way that I summarize it and think of it is it's an approach to behavior where you kind of want to discourage, you know, the behaviors that you don't want to see. You kind of try to like downplay them. I don't want to say ignore, but you know, don't bring a lot of attention to it. And you instead really reward the behaviors you do want to see. A lot of it too is analyzing where the behaviors came from, tracking it with data, you know, a lot of that, like really trying to get to the heart of what the behavior is, and then some replacement behaviors that you can reinforce in place of that. And also some preventative, like, you know, anticipating those behaviors and whatnot. So why would this be a problem to people? Why is this controversial? One of the things that people with autism sometimes don't like about ABA is very uncomfortable for them because sometimes the ABA is used to discourage certain behaviors. So people with autism, some of them, not all of them, but you do tend to see sometimes what's called stimming in people with autism. So it's like certain behaviors that are just very comforting to them, that's repetitive. They'll do it over and over. Like they might flap, you know, like flapping over and over again. With my son, it's more of a noise thing. He loves noises. He's very drawn to noise. He'll repeat certain phrases over and over and over again, and it feels good to him. It's kind of more of his stimming thing, but at least with him, it's a little more accepted than other certain behaviors, you know. So, because if a child comes into a classroom and they're like flapping and stuff, it's going to draw attention to them, and the other kids are going to be like, what's going on? And might not be as accepted and fit in, you know. So what they're doing with ABA is trying to kind of discourage those behaviors and teach them not to do those behaviors, even though they're drawn to them. And it's kind of like sometimes they have a sensory need. They'll use ABA therapy to really discourage those stimming behaviors. So a lot of people with autism, perhaps they went through these therapies when they were young and they feel that it was just very uncomfortable, maybe a little traumatic, because it was something that came so naturally to them. It was like a sensory need to them, a natural need that they had, that they were just basically being told, no, don't do this. You can't do that. And, kind of a feeling of like trying to fit what's that saying? Square peg into a round hole, or maybe I have the opposite. So anyway, so ABA is something that it's not, ABA was not founded by necessarily, Autism Speaks, but it is one of the therapies that they don't, speak out against, and they tend to promote and present to parents. It's kind of all part of the same controversial stuff within autism. So, ABA therapy is one of those things that can be controversial. It's kind of the gold standard for therapy of what truly does help kids with autism function and start to look more like neurotypical kids. But then that's kind of the other side with people with autism, is they're like, why can't we be who we are? Why are you trying to change us and turn us into something we're not? So that's kind of the first one argument. One of the controversies of Autism Speaks is that, they are very much kind of promoting therapies and nutrition and some of these things more for research of how to change the brain and behaviors, if that makes sense. Okay, so another reason number 2, why Autism Speaks is a bit controversial. It's not so much how it was founded, but kind of if you look at the history of how autism was treated over time. So, really, probably the first case or the first recognition of autism goes way back to maybe even like early 1900s, but it was really the 60s and 70s when it started becoming researched and part of the psychological, like DSM diagnoses and whatnot. Back in those days, it was treated, it was those really extreme cases too. And so, they were seen as, not so kind words were used, like the R word. They were seen very much as mentally damaged, whatnot. And most anyone who did get diagnosed or had it back in those days, they were automatically put in a mental facility. There was nothing, they just treated them like mental patients. So when the puzzle piece came out, it kind of goes back to the way that they presented it, and the whole symbolism of the puzzle piece is, I think the phrase they use is, until all the pieces fit together, something like that. Almost, I think the way that some people take it, especially those with autism take it, is that they're not complete until all these puzzle pieces are together, like they're broken, they're not a real person, they're not deserving, they're not a whole person like everybody else is. Kind of that implication with the puzzle piece. And back in the very beginning, when that logo was first started, it very much was presented that way. It was a negative thing. There was a lot of negative connotations around it, not treated inclusively. So that's kind of dating back with the puzzle piece. And Autism Speaks continues to use that logo. They also are, one of the things that they are big on as part of their research is trying to come up with understanding the genes behind autism, so that you could almost determine if there is a test to tell you if your child's going to have autism ahead of time, similar to like the Down syndrome test. We were all offered it when we were pregnant. I was, to take a test while my child was in utero, so that I had the option of whether I wanted to abort or not, if that was the case. And so there's a lot of controversy about that and pushing for that, because those with autism, they feel like, so basically saying we're not worthy of living if we have autism. And with autism, it's also such a range. I will just tell you that. You could have it, but you could be on the more functioning side of the spectrum where people barely even know you have it, versus the more extreme side where you have a very severe case. You never know, like, where that's going to end up too. So that's another controversy, is sort of just the negative connotations of how it's presented, and how it's been handled. Now, Autism Speaks was actually founded by a couple who their grandchild had autism. So I think, in those beginning stages, they were trying to kind of advocate for. It's just, the way that it's been presented, I think, has been very controversial. Okay, and then a third argument against Autism Speaks that people have is that sometimes they can kind of use fear as part of their campaign, and they kind of present it in a way that's just very, it can be negative. And so, for example, if you go out on the internet Googling some of this information, you will definitely stumble on a lot of statistics that make you terrified as a parent. If you're a parent first starting out on this road, not very good statistics. They'll all tell you how you're going to be broke from trying to pay for all of this. You're going to be depressed. You're going to be divorced, because the divorce rate among parents with, of special needs is like sky high. The chances of your child having a job are minuscule. One day they're going to be living with you. You're going to have to figure out what to do with them when you die. They're going to present all of these things at you. It is very overwhelming. So some of their campaigns definitely kind of feed on the negative emotions, the worry, the fear, the negative side of this for parents. And so I think that is very difficult for people with autism to see. Nobody wants to hear about how bad they're causing things for the other people in their life, right? Nobody wants to hear about, what a leech on society we are. Gosh, I think that's the feeling that they kind of convey in Autism Speaks a lot of times. So that's another argument against them. Now I'm going to discuss my take on it. I want to play devil's advocate on both sides. So I don't mean to be a politician that's like, yeah, I see both sides of this, but I'm going to be that politician. So I'm going to present to you my opinions. I'm going to present the in favor of Autism Speaks, and then not so in favor of Autism Speaks, and my thoughts as a mother of a child with autism. I'm just going to share a little bit of what it's like to be the parent of a child with autism. So our son, I didn't really know anything was up until he was about the age like 2, and it just seemed like parenting for me was so much harder than for everybody else. I felt like I couldn't take him anywhere. He had so many temper tantrums and would melt down, just complete meltdowns. It got to the point where I isolated myself and just didn't go anywhere, because it was like almost traumatic going somewhere. All of the judgmental faces you'd get from other people, it was like, can't you control your child? What's wrong with you? I have a lot of articles about this. I have a blog post, one that went viral on Love What Matters. Just some of my extreme feelings in the beginning. And, a lot of those tantrums, though, came from not being able to communicate, which is a key component of autism, is a lack of communication. Take away somebody's ability to communicate, and you're going to see behavior problems. You're going to be, imagine being trapped inside of a body where like nobody understands you and can fathom what you're trying to say, and you can't get any words out. The only thing you know to do is just scream. So we had a lot of screaming all day, every day. That was my life. Imagine being screamed at all day long, every day for years, and no escape from it. And somebody offers you therapy that can change that, that can give your child hope that they can talk, that they can voice what they need, what they want, what they feel. Are you going to turn that therapy down? Hell no. So, um, encouraging therapies, advocating for, you know, ways to help people function better, ways to help them communicate. I mean, nobody, yes, I don't know what it's like to be a person with autism, but I do know what it's like to be a parent of one. Those people don't necessarily know what it's like to be a parent, okay? The ones who have autism, they don't know what it's like to be in the parent's shoes, okay? You don't know what it's like to be facing in your life, is my child ever going to be able to speak? Am I ever going to be able to hear my child say, I love you? I mean, that's an emotional, a very difficult thing to deal with, to think that your child might not be able to speak and that they are going to have so many struggles that they don't necessarily have to have, if there is an option to help them with that, to be able to speak again. So I can offer from that perspective that what parent wouldn't want their child to get help? So it's not so much that I'm like, oh, I want to cure my child and change him, but it is that I want the best in this life for him. And the best in this life is going to be somebody who is able to function with what this world has. I want him to be able to have a job. I want him to be able to get married if he wants to. I want him to have lots of friends that he loves, that he relates to. I want him to have, be able to do anything he wants to do and not be held back. It's going to be a little hard to do that if you can't speak. Even if the world is adapting to your disability more and is, embracing who you are more, there's still going to be certain limits that are just, there's only so much you can do, if you continue to have those struggles. The therapies that are out there for autism, there is a book that I recommend, and I have so many articles on my blog that you can go read, but one, I share some of the statistics, and anybody who gets help for their child, like speech therapy, under the age of 5, and especially under the age of 3, I think it was under the age of 3, getting appropriate speech interventions, 95% of them would be able to speak and be verbal one day. 95%. What an incredible statistic. So it really, really, really hits home the importance of early intervention and getting your child as much help as possible while they're young. There's just so much help out there for people with autism under the age of 5. I've seen the research. I've lived the research for my kid. I have lived it. I have seen what a change therapy did for him and how far we have come. And I would never want to limit anybody else and take those opportunities away from them. This gives parents hope. It gives the people with autism hope as well. It's not so much changing who they are as a person. It's just helping the struggles that they have to be more functional. I don't know. If it's something that's more of a struggle that is holding them back, I believe in treating it. So that's where I don't find it as offensive, because I've been there as the parent, and they don't know what it's like to be facing that no hope situation of my child might never ever speak, what quality of life is my child going to have? And it's not about me, it's about them. It's about, we love our children. We want just the whole world for them. What I do agree with, though, I definitely am opposed to the pushing for the testing. It's not so much the testing itself, knowing whether or not you're a carrier for the gene. It's more, I think that if it's presented in a way that's like, okay, is there something we can do while we're pregnant, like diet-wise for it or something? For example, the research has helped us know that we need to take folic acid. So if it's presented in a way like that, where we can know how to take care of ourselves, um, to help it, I think that's okay. Who wouldn't want to have the most optimal health for them and their baby? Um, but when it is presented in a way that's like they're less than, they're not deserving of life, they're not deserving, because they're not performing a certain same way, they're less than. I have a real problem with that. That definitely goes against like everything I believe in. So I'm absolutely with them 100% on that. So when it comes to the argument about kind of how they present things with fear tactics and very negatively, I tend to do agree with this. I am a little bit opposed to how Autism Speaks present things sometimes. On one hand, it is, which one of the reasons I started my blog was to be a support to other parents, because there's a lot of emotions we go through. Your typical special needs parent tends to experience symptoms that are like PTSD chronically because of just the chronic, what you're going through every day, the journey that we go through. So I really wanted a blog where we could all vent and articulate the feelings that we had and have a safe place for each other. So on one hand, I see it that way, that, okay, this is kind of like giving you like preparation for, these are some of the feelings you might be feeling, and this is, what you might be going through, and these are the worries you might have, or what have you. But I don't feel that they have presented hope well enough. That's my beef with Autism Speaks. When I first started down this journey, I started reading all of their stuff, I was just heartbroken, devastated. I had no hope. I mean, I was devastated. I couldn't even read it. I just had so much grief. And it wasn't until I stumbled on a book that is on one of my blog posts. I might leave it in the links below for you if you want to check it out. And in that book, that was the first time I started hearing statistics that were actually hopeful. They gave you hope. They gave you like, an idea that, hey, there are things we can do. And, my child could have a great life with a great quality of life. That was the first time I was ever given that. It was not from anything that came from Autism Speaks. So I wish that there was more out on the internet for that. And that is where I absolutely agree with the autism community, that we need more advocacy for, here's the good things. But I tend to still want to see the therapies that can help, and even, the biomed, if there's something that could be done too to help. I want to see that as well, and that's where we differ. But I do definitely agree with, I do not like all the negative that's presented out there from Autism Speaks. When it comes to the puzzle piece versus the more rainbow infinity symbol, I tend to do more of the infinity symbol now, just to be respectful, even though I still have the puzzle piece on my foot. I will show you if I can reach my foot up here. All right, there's my tattoo. Okay, these feet really need some help on the ankles, don't they? They are dry. It has a little heart in the middle. To be honest, I really loved the design. I wanted something petite, delicate, and I did not want an infinity symbol, because everybody has a freaking infinity symbol. It's so unoriginal. It means so many different things to so many different people. To me, it's not really the symbol of autism. It's because, people use it to mean love, unending love, and for infinity. There's just so many things. And then like the rainbow colors, I mean, that to me is almost more all diversity, so it's like, to me, it's not specific enough to autism, in my opinion, but I do use it because I am very uncomfortable with the puzzle piece, like what it implies, or what it first implied. I'm definitely unsettled with how the puzzle piece began and some of the implications around it. It is something I don't necessarily want to associate with. So as far as wearing blue for Light It Up, I'm kind of like I'm probably just neutral when it comes to Autism Speaks, because there's some things I agree with and some I don't, and I see both sides of it. I really probably in the future will just ask my son for his opinion And I will also point out, though, too, one last thing on the side of kind of an Autism Speaks favor, maybe, or defending them. A lot of the people that are against Autism Speaks too, it does tend to be people with autism that are more high functioning. The people who are nonverbal are not really as able to speak for themselves. The ones who are more high functioning are the ones who are out there living their life. They are a lot of times getting a job. A lot of times they are in a relationship. They have been able to still live life pretty fully. But there's a whole section within autism of people who are not able to get a job, who are not able to speak, who are nonverbal, who are still sitting in their room rocking and flapping and screaming because nobody will understand what they're trying to say, you know? So I think that those who are vocal about this are not representing everybody with autism. I think that they are representing pretty much those who are high functioning because they have found a way to embrace who they are and embrace, even though they might have some struggles, they have still found their way. But not everybody has, if that makes sense. So I do want to just kind of make that point. So I am not full-blown against Autism Speaks, but I am respectful and completely understand where everybody's coming from. There's some things I do disagree with on Autism Speaks. So I'm kind of like half and half. So I kind of try to just, am I Switzerland? I think I'm Switzerland. I think I'm neutral. So I'm playing the politician. So that pretty much wraps it up. And hopefully I have not offended too many people, but I really wanted to weigh in on this. And I really wanted to bring some of that perspective in as a mom who has been down this path and who I have cried many, many, many tears, especially in those early days when I did not know what the prognosis looked like for my son. Because when you're first starting on this journey, you have no idea. You have no idea. It's a matter of time that plays out, and you have to learn how to accept and be patient, and little by little, teeny bit every day. And it is not an easy thing. So I think that about wraps it up. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, if it was helpful, and check out my page on parenting disabilities. Usually though, around here, I do tend to blog more beauty, and I'm starting to really try to get into a lot more travel vlogs as well. So stick around if you love that content too, and I will catch you on the next one.